Hi, Scott here from Other Record Labels. Today I want to take you through putting together album artwork for a vinyl release project. So let's say you are a record label or an independent artist and you want to take the artwork that you have in Photoshop, hopefully you have a layered file. I don't know where you made it from, or maybe a designer made it for you. And now we're going to put it into a template that's provided by your manufacturing plant. Today I'm going to use my friends from Breed Media, their template. And I'm going to take a record that I pressed last year and we're going to adapt it to their template and make sure that we do everything right so that when it prints out, it looks great. So I want to just show you physically what we're going to do because we can kind of fast forward because this is already done. So this is a record. This is my record actually that I put out last year, I think, or a year ago. Today, we're just going to be talking about the jacket, although I will maybe show you some other templates as well really quickly. But this is what we call the jacket. Okay, this is the front cover. This is the back cover, obviously. And this is the spine, which I don't think you can really see. This isn't a gatefold, so the spine is really super narrow, but we can still fit text on it, which is awesome. And then this is the inner sleeve right here, which you don't always print on the inner sleeve, but I did print on the inner sleeve, which it costs a little bit extra money. And so this is like double-sided. This is like full color, even though I'm actually only used one color. Maybe could have got a discount, not sure. And then this is the record. And then these are what's called the labels. And they're kind of caked on, which is kind of cool. They're put in an oven and then they are pressed. They're not put on the record after the fact. They're put on the record when the record is being actually stamped, when it's being squished. The labels go on either side of this little like warm plastic puck. And then it's squished. It's fun. I've got to do it before. So this is the record. This is in physical form that we're going to be talking about in Photoshop today. If you're not too familiar with Photoshop, that's okay. I think it's good for everyone to kind of see how this is done and to talk about some of the things that are important. So this isn't perfect yet, but I've got Breed's template open. In fact, I want to show you opening a template. Breed Media has provided me with their PDF template. And so I've opened up Photoshop and I've clicked File, Open, and I've clicked on their PDF and I'm opening their PDF in Photoshop. And this is the import dialog that you see right away. So I've selected Media Box. Crop Box is actually just, I don't think it really makes too much of a difference. Oh, it looks like it's not changing in size. Bleed Box. Yeah, I don't think it really matters. Okay. We want to make sure it's on CMYK. All of these settings, it might be selected to pixels. We're going to change it to inches. All of these settings, might be already preset, so it doesn't really matter. Probably CMYK already. I'm tempted to bump this up to 600, but the problem is that it would make the file size like more than half a gig, and we haven't even put our artwork in yet. So I'm not going to do 300. I'm just going to make sure that the stuff I'm not going to do 600 DPI. What is DPI? And let's talk about color in DPI for one real quickly. DPI is dots per inch, and so it's basically how much information per inch of the printed document you're going to see. And so this is kind of similar in a way to like the way your TV works, like how many pixels you're looking at on the size of your TV. And so on here, this would be 300 DPI, which is 300 dots of information per inch of this document. And so the reason why that's important is that basically on this document, you're seeing hundreds of thousands of millions of pixels or of dots of ink and information, which gives it that crisp look. If you were less, let's say you were to do 50 DPI, which is really low. So that'd be 50 dots per inch. You would be able to physically see those dots, right? Like 50 dots in a square inch, you'd be able to see them with your eye. And that's a problem because that's where we get low resolution from. So the higher, the better. You really can go 600, like 300 is the minimum. 300 is really like anything more than that, I don't think the eye would really be able to tell, especially from a distance. So like if you're looking at this on a record shelf, then it could really go down to like 100 or 200 DPI. But as you get up close, which most people do, right? They look at the lyrics really close, and especially I have like really small font. I'll tell you how small that is in a second, but you want that to be nice and crisp. So 300 DPI is a minimum. I'll double check this artwork, what it was when I printed it, but you can go up to 600 if your computer can handle that. So we're just going to open this file. So this is the template you're given. Now I'm going to show you like I've taken my artwork and I've dropped it in here. And so you could use this to design your artwork. So on the right-hand side here is the front of the sleeve. I'm going to hold up my artwork again. So this is the front. It's kind of backwards in a way. This is the spine. This little narrow column here in the middle is the spine, which is where you would put like the label name or the catalog ID, or at least just the artist name and the album name. There's not a lot you can fit in there. And then the back LP. So it's kind of backwards, right? And you can imagine why. Is because if you were to tear this apart and then hold it up like one, because there is like a line here. So this is folded. So if you were to open this up like you would take a textbook, for example. Okay, look at this book, for example. Great book, by the way. This is the front cover. This is the back cover. But if I were to lay this out in Photoshop, it would look like this, right? Well, with the spine, it would look like this. So that's the document. Okay. So one of the things I haven't used this template before, but there's something I want to highlight. See this line coming down here where it says 313 millimeters, and then another line coming across here. That is the square of our vinyl cover. And I believe, and Breed Media can correct me if I'm wrong, and I apologize if I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong, because 313 millimeters plus, give or take, would be 31 just about 31 centimeters. So that would be what this is. Let's confirm that. Yeah, so this is just over 31 centimeters by 31 centimeters. So what we're seeing here is our square record. And then this bottom stuff here and this stuff on the side, I believe, see how we have this extra space on here, but we don't have it over here? I believe that's actually folded and used to glue the two sides together. So this part right here, let me color on it just for fun. This part here and this part here is just used for gluing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Command R, which gives me my ruler. And I'm going to, this is what I always like to do. I like to set up my own guides just to show me what the actual album cover is. I'm going to give you a tour of this in a second. So this is not like technical here. I'm just doing this. These are just my visuals to show me what the customer is going to be seeing, because there's a lot of lines in here that just don't make a ton of sense. So now if I get rid of our template, now we see what it actually looks like. This is the front cover here. This is the spine here, and this is the back cover. So I'm going to keep these guides, and you can turn them on and off in Photoshop by Command:, and they won't show up on your artwork if you send, like they're not printed. They're just visible in Photoshop. So we've just got our template here. So this information you don't need. So let's look at some of the things that are important. Some of the things that are important is, I don't know why this space is here. Like, this is kind of confusing, to be honest. This little bottom spine. Oh, a bottom spine. Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, cool. Yeah, okay. So look at this here. That's the bottom spine. Okay, that's cool. Bottom spine, top spine. Okay, I'm starting to get this now. We're not going to use that. We can't print in that. Okay. So here's our black line. So this black line here is basically where the record is going to be folded or cut. Black might represent cut, and dashed. Let's get rid of my guides for a second. Dash might be folded. So it's folded here. I think that's what it means. Dash is folded. Black is where a cut would be. And the top is folded. If you have like a non-gatefold, like a single disc record, you could grab that and be looking at it. I think that'll help. The other thing to keep in mind is this red line here, and that's our bleed. And so what that means is that the printer needs, like, if our background is, let's say our whole background art is going to be pink. We need that. I'm going to put this over top. And just for you, I'll put a template over top. And I'm going to blend our template here just so we can see it properly on top of our artwork. And remember, this template is just for your printer's sake and just for your designer's sake. It's not, our customer is not going to see it. It's not going to be printed. When they go to print this, they turn it off. But this red line, which you can no longer see because I've chosen pink as my thing, which is kind of ridiculous. Let's change this to a lovely, whatever that is. So this is your bleed line. And so I like my artwork to just, it doesn't matter, right? It goes like completely over top, any amount, doesn't matter if it's equal, over top of this pink line. It just gives the printer lots of space, lots of extra art to work with, because their cutting isn't super precise. It is, but it's not that great. Okay, so we got a 3mm bleed all around. So basically, let's go back to, I'm going to go back to putting this to normal, and I'm going to bring back my guides. And so we now know that these nice turquoise guides that you see here is where the artwork's going to go. So let's get rid of this turquoise here, and I'm going to hop over to a file I've already been working on, which is, this is my arc that you've seen. So I'm going to take the template. The template is on multiply right now, which means that it's like blending in. But have I set up my guides? I haven't set up my guides here. So let's do that. Let's put my guides in just because I find them very helpful. Just to know where my artwork, this template is a teensy bit confusing, but it's just a little different than I'm used to. Just zooming in again, they're not precise. They don't have to be. These are just visual reference for me. I'm following the template primarily, but I like to mute, if you will, the template at times just to see how my artwork is coming. So this artwork is super abstract and minimal. I don't care if you like it or not. That's not what this is about. And I made it a while ago, so I'm liking it less. But okay, so it doesn't matter where this goes. This is just kind of generic right now. But right now for this front cover, I'm working within this parameter here, this box. So I'm trying to kind of center this piece of work here, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And I'm just kind of centering it in here. Okay, that looks good. Now, let's look at some of the everything looks nice and crisp, although these are starting to pixelate a little bit, but I'm for this purpose, it's okay. This is a vector file, and it looks like it will scale okay. This is a text, so no worries there, and the text is not converted to, oh, actually, this text is a smart object, so that's fine. What about here? Is this a text? Yeah. So this text was Helvetica, so I wasn't too worried about like the font not coming in. If I'm worried about like the prepress not having, like the manufacturing plant not having my font, then maybe I will convert it to a smart object, which I think would work like that, or I could even rasterize it. But rasterizing is dangerous because then you can't scale it up. So a smart object is fine, or if it's in the case of like Arial or Helvetica, something you know that they'll have, you can just leave it. I forgot to talk about colors, CMYK, which is and RGB. So RGB is digital. It stands for red, green, and blue, and basically it's how our screens are made up, and it's showing us different lights and combination of lights. Whereas that doesn't work when you're printing in real life. That's why everything on screen is far more vibrant than when we see it in real life. It's very hard to get like metallic or exciting neon colors without using Pantones, which I'm not going to get into today, in real life. Because in real life, they're using a combination of colors, CMYK, which stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and K stands for key, which is black. And so they're using a combination of those colors to make our desired result. And so if I were to switch it, right now we're looking at this in CMYK. If I were to switch this to RGB, which is the mode you want when you're doing print, but if I were to switch this to RGB, things are going to get way more vibrant and exciting. Now it's staying the same, but like let's look at this blue. Okay, so let's take this for a second. We're in CMYK. Let's move it to RGB. So now we have way more options available to us, and we can make this. See how I can make this like look, and that's originally how I designed it. And the digital version is actually nice and bright like that. Like, look how nice that is. Okay, so let's close that and save it. See, now when we look in our artwork, see how this is like super bright? That's because it is bright. It's got lights coming from back behind my monitor and shining it into my face. It's nice and bright. And right now, technically, at the time of recording this, when you press vinyl, there is no LED lights in the back of this lighting up your artwork. So you have to use ink, and ink has limitations. So watch this. If I convert this, right now we're in RGB. If I convert this to CMYK, don't merge, don't rasterize. Wah, wah. See, totally dull. So you want to make sure that when you're designing, and I've been a designer for a while, and I've made this mistake on this record. I was like designing in this like super vibrant blue, and it looked really cool with this neon, which I won't show you this now, but this neon and RGB looks super shiny and stuff. So what I ended up doing was I ended up making two versions of the album cover. I made a version that was more minimal and subdued for vinyl and for cassette. And then I made a version for Spotify and Apple Music that was more exciting, and it was actually laid out differently. So that's just something to keep in mind. That's your artist is going to be like, why does my vinyl record look so dull and muted? And that's the reality. And so you need to know that when you're designing. It's like, if this is just going to digital, it's going to look a certain way. But if it goes to print, then things change. Let's talk about font size real quick. So I showed you that this looked okay on the font size. What size font is this? So we're 4.5. My goodness, that is crazy. 4.5 points. Now, I don't know, gosh, I'm going to go back to my template. So I've been changing this around because I'm like adopting it to the which I haven't done the spine yet. I'm not finished yet, but I've been adapting it to this new Breed template. But I know when this was printed, it was actually 5 point. So, and it may be kind of, I don't know if like when we save the file, if it got blown up or not, but about 5 point, which is extremely small. Your grandma's going to have a terrible time reading that, but that's okay. Honestly, it doesn't matter to me. To me, design is more important than like fine print. So I honestly don't really care. If you can't read my copyright tag, I don't really care. I want it to look cool. Honestly, that's all that matters for me. You might disagree, but this worked out fine. Speaking of sizes, one of the biggest mistakes I see is, let's look at a CD for a second. So if I look at a CD, which is, we know that a record is 31 centimeters and a CD is 14 by 12. The back of a CD is 14 by 12 centimeters. So if I look at the back of a CD, we know that this is about, in size, this is about a third, maybe even a quarter of the size of vinyl, right? Like about a quarter. And now let's look at this barcode on the back. This barcode is, I don't know, I guess like maybe an inch by 2 inches, okay? And it's fine. I can read it. If I was a computer, I'd be able to scan that, no problem. So what ends up happening, and this is a big mistake, when you have artwork for your CD or for digital, and now you're doing vinyl, your inclination is to scale up your artwork by like 200% because you're like, okay, this is like a third or a quarter of the size, so let's go 4x or let's go 3x and make the back of this as big as this. But then what ends up happening is, like, if you look at this text, like this text on the back of the CD is probably like size 14 font. So now you're going to be like size 40 font on the back of your vinyl. It's going to look goofy because the human eye can see this just fine. Same with the barcode, same with the copyright text and the label logo. So my plea to you is, when you're doing logos, our eyes expect to see them at a certain size, which is like 1 inch by 2 inches or so, or 2 inches by 3 inches maybe. Same with text, 5 to 9 to 10 for small text, and anything bigger would be maybe like 12 or 14. This is a bad example. This is just part of the artwork, but you don't need to go that big. And what ends up happening is that people make, I've seen examples all the time. People will blow it up and then their barcode is like literally like this big. It's like the size of a hockey puck. It looks ridiculous. Same with the logos. The logos just look too big. So don't feel like you can just take your CD artwork, your digital artwork, and scale it up by 4. You can with some things, but like your text, it just doesn't need to be that big. So keep that in mind. it's like, this is one of the good reasons why you should print off a proof and just look at it that way. I never finished scaling this. Look at my spine here. Here's my spine text. So my spine text is like pretty much pushing the limits. I got a little bit of, this artwork is goofy because it's like gray background on the front, very subtle gray, and white background on the back. I was being kind of pretentious, but let me see if I can move this over. I'll bring my guide back, my template. And I'm going to try to put it right in between, which I can't, but right here. Let's move this right here. Okay. So turn off my template now. Yeah, okay, that's fine. It is what it is. Okay, so there's my spine text, kind of right in the middle. Looks good. It looks fine. Honestly, manufacturing plants, they get it wrong. The way it's folded, we were working in such a small margin. It's tough. I was told by somebody to do your spine text really big, like to almost push it to the limits of the guides. And then when it shows up in print, it actually looks a little bit smaller. Somebody told me that. So do this, right? Push the text right to the edge of the spine. And I did that and it didn't turn out very well. I wasn't happy with it. So I don't do that anymore. I do leave a little bit of a margin like this. Is it going to be centered? No, because it's folded by a machine or sometimes a human, and it's like it comes off and it's cut, and it's like these are old machines, and like we're working with such a narrow margin. The spine is never lined up. Just give it up. Okay, so that's like pretty much all I wanted to show you. When I'm done with this, so we got our template. I have the template in multiply mode. I'm looking at everything. It looks like it's lined up. I've got nothing coming close to the edges. My artwork is bleeding over fine. It's not this template here. It's this stuff. I don't have a ton of bleed in this. Look how safe from the edges I am. I think you should be a 1/2 inch from the edge. Anything that's important, like text, should be at least a 1/2 inch from the edge. That's just good practice. So everywhere here looks great. Spine looks great. I have no problems with this. I've cleaned up my layers. So everything is labeled friendly for the most part. Everything that is embedded that needs to be embedded. I turn off the template. I turn off my guides. There's the finished product. That's actually what's going to be printed off and fed into the printer and in the cutter. Now, what I'm going to do is I would save this file as a Photoshop file, and then I might even save it as a PDF. So if I went save as, and then you would get this dialog here, and I would go press quality, preserve, no, compression. I might even do this if they want a PDF version and save a PDF version. But I would just give them a layered Photoshop file, upload it to their, if they use Dropbox or WeTransfer or they have an FTP site, and I would give them this. And then what's going to happen is that the graphic designer at the manufacturing plant or their pre-press people will open up this file and they'll get in touch with you if there's any issues. Now, they won't get in touch with you if there's spelling mistakes or if they think the design looks goofy. That's up to you to fix. But if there's something glaringly obvious, like your spine isn't lined up or you don't have enough bleed, or if the colors are wrong, I don't know. Depends on how friendly they are. But a lot of the stuff has to be handled by you and your designer. Okay, a couple of pieces of advice before I let you go. Number one is hire a real designer. This is really complicated. Designing a cover that you're going to use for Bandcamp or you're going to use for Spotify is a different beast. It's actually way easier. It's something you could do on your iPhone. It's something you could do on Canva for free. But when taking that artwork for print, like for CDs or for vinyl in this case, that changes things. There's a lot, as you've seen, that gets laid out, and there's a lot of mistakes that can be made, and you're spending tons of money. If you're uploading to Spotify, it's essentially free. And there is like a way I think you could change it down the road. Definitely on Bandcamp, you can change the artwork. So, but when you're doing vinyl, you're spending thousands of dollars. And when hundreds of these come in the mail and there's a mistake, then you're in big trouble. And that sucks and you can't fix it. And so Hire a real designer. Hopefully you have someone you work with over the long term. Maybe you can find someone on Fiverr or in a community of record label peeps. Also, hire a designer who specializes in layout. And so we use Photoshop here. I also use Adobe InDesign occasionally, but hire someone who specializes in the layout, not just like a great painter or a great photographer or a great artist, but actually someone who knows templates and layout and coloring and DPI and all that stuff we discussed. Have a friend look it over. I mean, send them a PDF and just say, is there anything you notice? And they'll be like, yeah, looks terrible, or there's a typo. If you want, I've done this occasionally, print off a proof. So you can take this, you can't print a proof at this size at your home printer unless you have a big printer, but you can take it to like Kinko's or the equivalent and print it off full size. It might cost you $10 per copy or $20 per copy, and you and the artist can look it over. The color's not going to be exact, and it might differ a little bit from the plant because the plant might be using a non-digital process. They might be using like a printing press type of process with inks, whereas digital, so it's going to look different, but it might give you a general idea. And you can even, if you want to get creative, you could print it off at actual size and cut it up and paste it to like a blank record cover and just hold it in real life. That could help. And finally, I don't want to get into this too much, but think about vinyl color, because the color of vinyl that your manufacturing plant gives you, the options that they give you are limited, right? It's their colors that they already have plastic for. You can't tell them, I want this specific color. Now you can in a way, but that's like there's like a minimum quantity for those, and they use a Pantone, and it's super expensive. They have like a preset colors and mixture of colors and translucents and opaques that you have to pick from. When you pick one of their colors, let's say on this cover, you wanted to match the blue or you wanted to match the green. Well, you have to pick one of their predetermined blues or predetermined greens to match. And that's really hard to do. The chances of you matching that color because it's plastic, trying to match ink on paper, it's impossible. It's very unlikely you'll come close. And what ends up happening is you'll come so close, but not close enough that it just looks bad. It just clashes a little bit. You know, you're wearing like a green sweatshirt and you're wearing green pants and they're not the exact same. And it's just like, ugh. So just be careful about that. Instead, always like err on the side of picking a complementary color. Or in this case, I was trying to get a green that matched, but I just decided to go transparent, clear, because clear matches everything. So clear, white, black, that matches everything. Or something just so crazy that, you know, sometimes I like pick like a really like a secondary or like a third or fourth color that's hidden in the design and do that. Or just something that's so left field, like on this, if you were to do pink, it would be so left field that it would kind of work. I'm going to include things like, I might include this template that you can goof around with. Just go to otherrecordlabels.com/vinyl, where I have all of my resources for vinyl manufacturing, otherrecordlabels.com/vinyl. I hope you found this helpful.